That's right, folks. This is once again Fanaticsw and a Fan. Welcome back to the show. I am Hawk, and I am glad to have these wonderful folks here with me. Of course, you've got Loot from Mental Health and Makeup with her little ears that are just
they make me so happy.
Exactly. And of course, from Pop Culture Mind, Phil, the big dog Keith. We've got so much stuff to talk about. We've actually, as you guys know, me and Keith, we do this all the time. We get right into it. So, there's obviously a half hour before the show, we're just talking about it. So I'm just going to jump right back into it. Keith, the world loves this Dune movie. Okay.
Yes.
Flat out, they're just gaga over this Dune movie.
Yes.
Why? Considering they hated the one that it's based off of. Why they're loving it so much?
I really wouldn't call it hate. The movie did the '84 David Lynch version was not a box office hit. Okay, there were a lot of people who either liked it or they didn't, and that was back in '84. People loved this version because it's in the same vein as what Peter Jackson was able to accomplish with The Lord of the Rings, which is you have someone who is a fan of the original material. They actually read the original material before they even thought about making a movie. As Peter Jackson said, he was reading The Lord of the Rings like once a year, and the same thing with Denis Villeneuve. He read Dune at least once a year, and you can tell the love of that material comes through. And when you are making a film, it's very important that gets communicated. That isn't to say that David Lynch didn't like his Dune. I mean, why spend a few years of your life making a movie? But he didn't have that same kind of love of the original book. That it was a film to be made, and it was a film that a lot of people thought could never be filmed. And he took that as a challenge and he overcame it. And that's what that comes down to.
I'm gonna let that one go and just let you be right. I distinctly remember a lot of hate and a lot of flack for David Lynch's film. Now, ironically, with me and David Lynch, that's the only thing he's ever done that I liked.
Really?
God's honest truth. It's the only thing he's ever done that I've ever paid attention to.
You didn't like The Elephant Man?
God, no.
Oh my God, dude.
There's
really?
a lot of David
like
Lynch stuff that I'm just not a fan of. I'm just, and of course, growing up. So for me, to me, Dune was the 80s version of Dune was science fiction in the 80s, because you had Star Wars, Star Trek, and Dune, and everything else. And everything else wasn't Star Trek and Star Wars, so it wasn't as great. And to me, Dune was the first step into having great science fiction. It wasn't, although I will admit, and I've always said this, I did not need the political race. I did not need, there's a lot of edits that could have been done there. It's kind of like a lot of information we got in, what was that one, Valerian, or what's that Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum when it was so bad.
Oh, I love that one.
Jupiter Ascending.
I love that.
Let me tell you something about Jupiter Ascending. The script is awful, but it is one of the best looking science fiction adventure movies of the last 20 years. That movie is incredible. There are films that have actually made some money, done some that would kill to look like that movie.
I will admit, visually it was beautiful, aesthetically beautiful.
Yes. The art direction was incredible.
Yes.
Everything about that movie, aside from the script, was great.
Well, and also I wouldn't have cast Channing Tatum. He was just not my first choice.
I would have.
And Kunis didn't look like she wanted to be in the movie.
She did. She was all up in that. Look, I agree to disagree with you about how the people who participated in the movie felt about it.
Right.
But I will say this. It's a good example of how important a good script is to a movie.
Oh, yeah.
That film, Jupiter Ascending, is it's very important that you have a great script if you're going to invest that kind of time, effort, and money into it.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is a great panel question. While I've got, because I know Lute's always behind on movies.
I'm always behind on them. Yes.
What would you say is a great story with a bad movie attached to it? Did I say that right?
No, I think you did. Yeah.
Okay.
Great story with a bad movie attached to it.
For example, that is what Dune gets a lot. Dune gets, I see what you're trying to do there, but this is awful, or like even John Carter. John Carter, a lot of people say, because the comic book was hugely successful, but the movie.
Well, that's because then again, that's the reason for John Carter was because
I dislike the actor, and I think that he is the reason that everything he touches fails.
Bob Iger, look, just between you and me and a few other people in the wall, the inside word on that one is that movie was sabotaged on purpose.
Yeah.
Because Disney wanted to acquire Star Wars, and they had the opportunity to do that. And rather than do everything necessary to make John Carter, to help it become a success, they decided to do as little as next to nothing to help that movie be successful. For instance, naming that film John Carter with nothing else attached to it.
Terrible idea.
It was, but it was done on purpose.
Right.
Okay. Rather than naming it like A Princess of Mars or John Carter, Warlord of Mars, or even for people like yourself who only know the property as a comic rather than as the original literary work that it was, you not attaching it to anything really did not help this movie.
Right.
That film got next to no real marketing support from Disney.
Well, of course not. And of course, like I said, the actor. But let's go back to the original question. I'm gonna start with Luke, because she's had the most time to think. What would you say is well, let me actually, I'll even make it easier for you. Either a good movie with a bad story, or a great story with a bad movie attached to it. Either one. I'll accept either one.
So one of my favorite book series when I was younger was City of Bones, was the first one. It's by Cassandra Clare, and they did a movie adaptation. And I was so sad because it was so terrible. And thankfully, there's been Shadowhunters, which is a series that's come out that has done a great job.
Right.
They don't follow the book immediately, like exactly, but they reference the fact that they don't. And I love that. But the movie, oh my God, the original movie was so terrible.
Keith.
Man, that's a difficult question. Mainly because I've seen so much.
Yeah, you've seen a lot.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. You know what? Good story, bad movie. That would have to be. No, I can't say that one, because then that would lead me down a road I don't want to go. And plus, that was, in my mind, bad on both fronts. But I would have to say,
actually, I'll give you a chance to think about it.
Young Sherlock Holmes.
That's a great one.
Good example, because that is a really bad adaptation of Sherlock Holmes. The story's good, but it's a really bad adaptation. It makes no sense.
Right.
So
let me get you guys' take on my two. Okay. My first one is I Am Number 4. Now, was that a good story with a bad movie, or was that a bad circumstance of a movie being shot at the wrong time.
It depends on if, first of all,
It
if you're
lost
a fan of the
so much
series.
money they didn't have the confidence to do the rest of the movies.
Well, that goes without saying for a lot of films. There are a lot of movies that are made where they assume they're going to make another one and they don't end up making another one.
Let's circle back to Jupiter Ascending.
On top of that, I mean, you look at something like say the second G.I. Joe film. Was so bad that he pretty much killed the rest of the series.
Right.
You look
and
at
any hopes of trying to do another series because Snake Eyes barely squeaked by with a little bit of profit.
You look at something like, say, even and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I don't care. You look at something like The Last Jedi that completely decimated the box office advantages of what the first movie prior to that had done, and making little money compared to the first one, and then setting up a really bad third movie that couldn't come back from that because of one change that they could have made in the editing.
We're not doing that right now. We don't have the 6 hours to do that right now. But let's circle back to item number 4.
Yes.
I know that there was a great story there. And you had some halfway decent actors. Timothy Olyphant, big fan. I'm a huge fan of him. I don't know about him in science fiction, but I'm a huge fan of Timothy. Not just something obviously was wrong with that movie.
You know what? Wait. You know what? I have an even better one.
Okay.
Hellboy.
Yeah. Which one?
You see? That's the recent one that had a lot of behind the scenes problems because you have a director that I think nearly came to blows with the producer on that film.
Yeah.
That movie has a great story, but it's God, that is bad.
Well, now here's my second one. And I know it's a good story because it's a best-selling book.
Yes.
Aragon.
Oh my God, it was so awful.
Yeah, that was bad. That was yeah.
I can't even count the number of ways that they went wrong with making this movie.
I don't think the person read the book first. Like, it seems like they didn't know the story when they filmed it, because there were it was just disappointment after disappointment from start to end.
Yeah, you walk out of there going, well, was that it?
What the hell story did I just watch?
I got charged for the wrong movie on that one. I mean,
and what's sad is how many people were excited to see this entire series.
It was so, because it's written so well.
Yeah.
Especially for like the age of the author at the time that he created it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, dragons. I mean, you can't go wrong with dragons. How you going to screw that up? Even Reign of Fire was a halfway decent movie. You look at really what it was.
Reign of Fire was a much better movie than Aragon.
Yes.
But
SpongeBob movie was a much better movie than Aragon.
Yeah. Look, there's almost a half dozen movies I could come up with that were better than Aragon, although Last Jedi is right there with Aragon. So it's one of the few films that, yes, I did it again. Yes, I did it again. I'm still saying it.
I feel like, so, because I'm trying to keep away from Star Wars, because to me, Star Wars is a whole nother discussion when it comes to, I don't even really put Star Wars in a movie discussion, because Star Wars is an experience.
Right.
And they've had ups and downs since I was born.
Bad one too. It's like bad sushi.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
So while we're in this vein, let's move on to this. I got up the other day, and of course, the last trailer for Eternals with Salma Hayek narrating it, and you hear Black Panther, and you see, and I'm honestly, hearing Black Panther alone is enough to give you chills. Because it's just because it did it in the movie the first time, it did it the second time. It was, that battle cry is amazing, and Selma's monologue was perfect. And then you get the movie, And I said in the last show, they had too many casts, they had too much story to tell. This is not a good idea. And Keith is just, yeah. Wait, let me put it on everybody because the look on Keith's face.
You know what? It's great to feel that way, but logic and better movies have shown that that's not always the case. Again, I go and point to the aforementioned The Lord of the Rings. That's an incredible cast, a lot of different characters. Pulled that off over 3 films really well. Okay, if you have everything going for you and you're doing your homework and you're making the right kind of film, hey, large cast can always work if you know what you're doing. So
well, now that leads me back to my original statement last month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you cannot always expect to get the same result. Just because Guardians was hugely successful, Guardians 1, it does not mean that lightning is going to strike again.
Yeah, except that in the case, if you're going to compare Guardians to the Eternals, there's 2 important ingredients that you need. Okay.
And they can't both be James Gunn's, Keith.
First, you need someone that's talented enough to write really well. And
right.
Second, you need someone that's actually a fan of the source material. Okay. The director is not a fan of the source material. I don't know how many different ways one can even continue to say that and people still mess it up. You have to
that
be
leads
a
me back
fan
to my
of the
original
source material.
statement from last month.
Yes.
I love the idea of taking something that wasn't great. Eternals, the comic run, was not great. It was clearly better than the movie. Let me qualify that. It was clearly better than the movie. But the run in Eternals, I still want to be that guy that walks into somebody's office like, hey, listen, I know this comic book has failed, but let's make a feature film anyway.
Yeah, but you also have to understand there's approximately about 40 years between that and somebody going, hey, let's do the Eternals as a movie. And in that time, the genius of Jack Kirby and what he was attempting to recreate for Marvel with the Eternals has been proven out. Okay, look, how many people here? Yes, because, don't even play.
My mind goes to the debacle that was Inhumans real quick.
It has nothing to do with that. Inhumans has nothing to do with that. Okay, look, you know that Jack Kirby was fed up with Marvel, left Marvel, went to DC, and created the Fourth World and everything connected to it. Now, for those of you out there that aren't paying attention or are not comic book readers, the Fourth World is what gave us Darkseid and Apocalypse. You know, the big bad villain of Zack Snyder's Justice League, right? Eventually, he left DC, went back to Marvel, and Stan Lee goes, hey, you know what you were doing over at DC with that Fourth World stuff that sold all those copies? Do the same thing for us. So he did. He did the exact, he took what he was doing and he did it for them. The Inhumans has nothing to do with that. That is nothing.
I mean, was just making an example. Calm down. But you give me another great question.
Okay.
Because I feel like Eternals, Guardians, and Inhumans all were on the same vein as far as comic book sales versus the idea of putting them on some sort of screen. Mm-hmm. So what's another story that you would like someone to take a chance on putting in front of you on a screen? It doesn't have to necessarily be comic book. It can be a video game. It can be a book.
I'll tell you, as far as comic books go, I would like Marvel to be honest with itself. They truly are going to have proper representation. The Blue Marvel is the next character you need to do.
I love it.
The very fact that they haven't done that yet says way more than anything that Kevin Feige or Victoria Alonso or anyone connected with Marvel Studios right now is actually saying. Until you actually do that, I'm not going to believe it. And you're going to continue to not have as much success as you would like if you continue to ignore that. Okay? And as far as DC is concerned, the Legion of Superheroes.
Nice.
That is, and you don't have to do anything to it. Cast the way that it is cast in the comics, and you will have success. And if you want more diversity, guess what? It's called the Milestone universe. You have all the diversity you could ever want within the Milestone.
You're gonna mention Milestone somehow.
You know what? The very fact that Warner Brothers and the current guy running things on Warner Films, Mr. Wally Hamada, the fact that he's not even done anything with that shows he's not as diverse in his thinking as he would like to believe. It's BS if you actually think he is. I don't give a care. And yes, Wally, I called you Wally.
Lou.
I'd love to see Aragon done properly. So that'd be great. I'd love to see Avatar and Korra brought like to life better than the one-off they did for the last Airbender. And then is it happening, girl?
Yes, it's happening. If you pay attention to Fanatics and the Fan, we announced that last week, darling.
I was here last week. I don't remember that.
No, on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, no, okay. Well,
I do all kinds of
10. There's 10 of them. Fuck. There's 10 of them. I can only do so much. And then along the same vein as City of Bones, the House of Night series, which has like 15 books. It'd be so cool if they would do an on-screen adaptation of that. I've been waiting for that since I was like 15. So.
Wow, see, you seem to have a nice collection of names and things that you would like to see done really well. I think I am the same way, although a lot of my list is actually being done, so that's the only reason why I didn't.
Apparently some of my list is being done already as well.
I have one that no one's even thought about because I don't think it can be done.
Oh, here we go.
StarCraft.
Yes, it can be.
I mean, they said that about Warcraft, and we see what we got.
Yeah, that's just because you had the wrong person doing it. Look, if it's already been done and it wasn't successful, that's just because that idea was paired with the wrong people. You know, the 66 Batman series has a lot more in common with the film Batman and Robin than many fans of either of those will admit to, because it's all based on the same material.
Yeah.
That stuff, though, is not representative of Batman as a character prior to the 1960s, and definitely after the show went off the air. Yet you had people thinking that that's the way it was going into Tim Burton's Batman movie from '89, which completely flipped the script and then showed people that, hey, guess what? There's more to this Batman stuff than just the zap, bam, the pow, and a lot of really bad jokes.
You know what else would look good?
More to it than the Adam West of it all.
You know what else would look really good?
There were decades of stuff, even other actors. Many people don't even know that there were other actors that had the part before Adam West.
Yeah.
You know, just like with Superman. Kirk Allen was actually the first person to play Superman. Then you had George Reeves. Then you had Christopher Reeve. So only two actors prior to 1978.
Yeah.
With Batman, no, you had two other actors that had played Batman well before Adam West came along. So there's a history to a lot of this stuff that gets either forgotten about, covered up, buried, whatever you want to call it. But just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it didn't happen. You know, it's kind of like Black Cowboys.
Here's an example. Keith, remember when the video game Wing Commander was very successful?
Oh my God, I remember all that stuff, and I remember the guys that were responsible for bringing it to life, and how the guy behind the film Wing Commander then tried to set his sights on Battlestar Galactica, and a lot of fans were like, "No!"
Right, because he ruined a great series.
What if? What
if we got a Red Dead?
What, from that same guy, or
no? God, no, not from that guy. not from that guy.
You mean a Red Dead Redemption movie?
Yeah, a series, or even the series, three or four of them.
It depends on who you have doing it. That's all. That's my only thing. First of all, are you a fan of the original material? And second of all, do you have the skills to actually make that? I think you need to have, look, that's my thing with any of this. I don't care if you're making a fantasy epic based on a successful series of novels or comics or whatever. If you are not a fan of the source material, you're going to have a pretty long road to go before you can actually, your chances of doing something successful are not that good. That doesn't mean you can't, but they're not that good. Again, Denis Villeneuve and Peter Jackson have proved that you need to be a fan. It isn't a hard, fast rule that you have to be, but you need to be. And you need to be a much bigger fan than many people who are adapting things right now. So,
or learned enough director to say, hey, there's all of this source material here. I should go look at some of it and look at it unbiased like.
There's a documentary on YouTube that you can watch for free about Jodorowsky's original version of Dune that was attempted back in the 70s that sheds
there was no way they were going to make a good movie out of that in the 70s. The technology wasn't there.
When you see the talent that they had working on how they were going to make this movie, I'm telling you, there were things that they were going to be doing in that movie that would have just, as I told you before the show, it makes David Lynch's 84 Dune look like a Disney film with what they were going to do with that. And you're right, there was a lot of technology they didn't have, but they were still going to try to pull it off. Then again, when you look at a television series like, Space 1999 or UFO, the visual effects from the Andersons is better than a lot of visual effects for a lot of science fiction television shows that have done within the last 10 years. So,
and how depressing is it that so many things that should have been good were not?
It happens. It's law of averages.
Like that. And that's gonna be my last question for the show. Give me something that should have been good, not just something that you wanted to be good, Luke.
Yeah.
Something that that just out the box should have been outstanding and was not.
I got one. Superman Returns.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that should have been great. That should have revitalized the entire DC universe.
Well, that's because you had a director that was looking to another director's interpretation of Superman rather than reading the comics and trying to figure it out for himself. You had in that particular film, Bryan Singer was attempting to revive the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman. Superman as a whole is a great character. But if you're doing a riff on someone else's riff, if you're doing a copy of a copy or of interpretation, your chances of success are not that good. So, yeah.
I don't know enough. I don't have enough information about how successful things have come out of the box office, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, because I don't. For me, a classic example would have been Aragon. Should have been.
I was gonna say Aragon again.
You can. It's perfectly okay.
Aragon. It should have been better. It should have. I mean, the movie deserved to not do well because it was garbage.
Right.
But I wish it had been better. You said I couldn't wish for things.
Well, here's one that should have been good.
Did you say Crawl? Oh, I'm sorry.
Airbender.
Airbender was also
should have been out freaking standing.
Steel. That's another one. That should have been good.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, hang on. should it have been good, or should they have actually tried to make it good? Because I mean, they didn't really do anything to make it good, did they?
No, they changed too many things. Again, it's Hollywood not being very afraid of having intelligent characters of color, because what they did was unforgivable in that movie. You took a character in the comics who was one of the smartest people, and in the live action version, you decided to say, hey, he's not that smart because it's this white woman over here in a wheelchair that actually did all the work.
Yeah, I remember that. That was among one of many things that made me upset.
Well, they did the same thing with Static Shock. They did the same thing with the television series Mantis. Every single time you had a character of color who was smart enough to ever do anything, when it came time to actually put it out with the general public, you had to have someone who was not dark in skin color, who were the actual brains behind it, and they ended up doing the same thing with Black Lightning on the CW.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
Don't get me started on that.
Man.
And on that note, folks, we're going to step away. This is just what we do. You can check us out every week right here at Fanatics and Fan on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are always here. We've got so many exciting things coming up for you guys for our next show. We're going to be talking about Geekmas and all the wonderful things, big announcements about Geekmas. So check us out right here at Fanatics and the Fan.
Hi, this is Tom Kane, the voice of a Jedi Master named Yoda, and you're listening to Fanatics and the Fan.